I'll be honest with you. I wasn't expecting much when someone first told me about sweet tea helping with diabetes. I've lived with type 2 diabetes for over a decade, and by now, I've tried just about everything. Low-carb diets, walking every day, swallowing pills morning and night. Some things helped a little, but nothing ever really made me feel good again. So when I heard about a tea, yes, a tea, that could lower blood sugar, I laughed. It sounded like one of those things people share on Facebook, like rubbing garlic on your feet or drinking hot water with lemon. But the person who told me about it was someone I trusted, and they swore it worked for them. Just try it, they said. So I did. I figured, if nothing else, I'd enjoy a warm cup of something nice after dinner. At first, I didn't notice much, just a taste, which was a little bitter but not unpleasant. I sweetened it with a bit of stevia, and it became something I looked forward to. After a few days, something changed. My mornings felt easier. I didn't wake up feeling like my joints were made of concrete. I had a bit more energy in the afternoon, which, for me, was a big deal. Usually by 3 p.m., I'd feel drained and foggy. 2 weeks in, I went for my regular checkup. My doctor looked at my numbers, then looked at me, puzzled. "What are you doing differently?" he asked. I smiled and told him, "I've been drinking tea." He laughed, but when I explained more, he stopped and nodded slowly. That's when I realized I might have stumbled onto something real. So today, I want to share the 7 teas that made all the difference for me, starting with the one that surprised me the most. Number 7, Dandelion tea. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be drinking tea made from a weed, I would have laughed in their face. Dandelions? The same little yellow flowers I used to pull out of the lawn when I was younger? It didn't sound right. But one day, while reading online about natural ways to help with blood sugar, I saw more than one person talk about dandelion tea. It helps the liver, they said. It can reduce water retention, others added. But what caught my attention was the part about inulin, a natural fiber in the root that some folks claimed helped regulate their blood sugar. I was skeptical, of course, but I remembered how strange the sweet tea story started. So I figured, why not? I went to a local health store and found a box of dried dandelion root tea bags. A bit pricey, but if it helped even a little, it would be worth it. The first time I brewed it, the smell was earthy, kind of like the woods after rain. The taste? Not exactly delicious. I'll admit, a little bitter with a grassy note. But I had learned a trick from a friend. Add a slice of apple or a cinnamon stick to the cup, and it softens the bitterness without sugar. I sat down, took a sip, and felt nothing special. But after a few days of drinking in the late afternoon, I started noticing something. My ankles weren't as swollen at night. I wasn't waking up every hour to use the bathroom, like before, and the bloated feeling I often had after dinner, it started fading. I wasn't sure if it was the tea or just coincidence, but it felt good enough to keep going. 2 weeks later, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I weighed myself. I had lost 3 pounds without even trying. No new diet, no intense exercise, just my usual meals and the tea. That's when I got curious and started reading more. Turns out, dandelion helps the liver do its job better. And when your liver works better, your blood sugar often does too. The inulin in the root, which I had brushed off before, actually feeds the good bacteria in your gut. And a healthy gut, I learned, plays a big part in how your body handles sugar. It was strange, almost funny, how something growing wild in the yard could be doing so much inside me. But that's the thing about nature. It hides its treasures in plain sight. Of course, I didn't stop taking my medications or stop eating carefully. But adding this tea felt like giving my body a little extra help. I also noticed that my digestion improved. I wasn't as gassy or uncomfortable after big meals. I told my sister about it. And now she drinks it too, especially when she's feeling a bit bloated or heavy. The tea became part of my evening routine. 1 cup, warm and calming, just before the sun goes down. It helped me slow down, breathe deeper, and feel like I was doing something gentle but powerful for my health. I never imagined that a plant I used to see as a nuisance could become such a quiet ally. Now, before you rush out and drink gallons of this stuff, let me say this. Not everything works the same for everyone. And if you take water pills or have kidney problems, It's smart to check with your doctor first. But for me, dandelion tea was the beginning of a change. Not dramatic, not overnight, but steady and comforting. It reminded me that healing isn't always about big moves. Sometimes it's just a warm cup, a new habit, and a little faith. And with that, let's move on to another tea that brought surprising relief to my everyday life. Number 6, turmeric tea. I remember the first time I saw turmeric up close. It was this bright yellow powder in a little glass jar in my neighbor Maria's kitchen. "It's magic," she told me, sprinkling it over her soup. I didn't think much of it back then, just another spice. But years later, when I started looking for natural ways to help with my joint pain and blood sugar, turmeric came up again and again. At first, I only saw it in recipes for Indian food or fancy golden milk lattes, which didn't sound like anything I'd drink. But then I came across a simpler version, turmeric tea, just a powder, some black pepper to activate it, and hot water. I decided to give it a try one night when my knees were particularly sore, thinking, what's the worst that could happen? The taste was different, earthy, almost like ginger but deeper. I added a dash of cinnamon and a splash of almond milk, and suddenly it was not only bearable, it was actually soothing. That first cup made me feel warm from the inside out. I wasn't expecting anything dramatic, but within a few days of drinking it nightly, I noticed something subtle. I wasn't reaching for the pain cream as often. My knees still creaked, sure, but the aching wasn't as sharp. I was able to move around the house more freely in the morning, and even walking down the steps to get the mail didn't feel like a chore. It was the kind of change you don't notice all at once, but when you do, it feels like a little miracle. Then there was my mind. I don't know if it was the tea, the routine, or something else, but I started feeling more clear-headed. I've had my share of senior moments, forgetting names or walking into a room and not remembering why. But something about this new habit made me feel sharper. I later read that turmeric has something called curcumin, which is supposed to help protect the brain. I'm not a scientist, and I don't understand all the details, but all I can say is I felt better, more focused, less foggy, and that alone made the tea worth it to me. But the part that surprised me most came during my monthly blood sugar check. I wasn't expecting much change. I hadn't adjusted my meals, and I was still taking my usual medication. But my numbers were lower, not dangerously low, just steadier. I felt more balanced throughout the day, and those energy crashes after lunch weren't hitting me as hard. Could it all be the tea? I don't know, but I do know that when I stopped drinking for a few days, I felt the difference. My joints stiffened back up, and that mental sharpness faded a bit. It was enough proof for me. Now it's part of my nightly ritual. I boil a little water, stir in the turmeric and pepper, add a touch of cinnamon or almond milk, and sip it slowly while reading a book or watching the news. It's a moment of peace before bedtime. I know not everyone likes the taste right away, but give it a few tries. You might be surprised. And if you're like me, someone looking for small, natural ways to feel better, turmeric tea might just become your golden cup of comfort. Number 5, chamomile tea. I'll be honest, chamomile tea used to be just a bedtime drink I saw in movies. You know, the one people sip when they're feeling sad or can't sleep. I never really gave it a second thought. But after one too many nights tossing and turning, and waking up more tired than when I went to bed, I started looking for ways to calm my mind without reaching for sleeping pills. That's when I remembered chamomile. I found a box at the grocery store, nothing fancy, just a simple blend. That night, I made a cup, sat by the window, and took a deep breath. The smell alone, like warm flowers, was enough to make me exhale a little slower. The first night I drank it, I didn't fall asleep right away, but I did feel something I hadn't in a while. Stillness. My body felt less tense, and my thoughts, which usually ran like a freight train at bedtime, started to slow down. I sipped the tea slowly, feeling its warmth fill my chest. I didn't wake up groggy the next morning like I often did with sleep meds. Instead, I felt rested. The more I drank it, just one cup a night, usually an hour before bed, the easier it became to fall asleep and stay asleep. My dreams returned, too, gentle ones, not the restless, broken kind that left me confused at sunrise. But sleep wasn't the only thing that changed. I noticed I wasn't snapping as much during the day. You know that tight feeling in your chest when everything feels like too much? It softened. My digestion also improved. I used to feel bloated after dinner, like my stomach didn't know what to do with itself. But now, I felt lighter, more at ease. I even stopped needing my gas pills as often. A friend told me chamomile helps calm the gut as well as the nerves, and that made sense. It was like the tea was giving my whole body a chance to relax, from the inside out. One afternoon, I forgot to make the tea. That night, I had trouble falling asleep again. Coincidence? Maybe, but it was enough to convince me that this little flower had a real effect on me. I also noticed my blood sugar didn't spike as much after dinner. I'd read somewhere that chamomile could help stabilize glucose, especially after meals. I didn't expect that when I first started, but it became another quiet reason to keep going. It was comforting to know that something so gentle could be doing so much good. Now it's my evening ritual. I turn off the TV, put the kettle on, and steep a bag of chamomile while I wash the dishes. It's not just a drink. It's a signal to my body and mind that the day is done and it's time to rest. If you're someone who wakes up tired, feels anxious for no clear reason, or just want a peaceful way to end the day, chamomile tea might be your answer. For me, it became more than a calming beverage. It became a gift I give myself each night. Number 4, green tea. Green tea was one of those things I always heard was good for you, but I never understood why. It sounded like something young people drank while doing yoga or talking about detoxing. It didn't seem like something for someone my age, with sore knees and a glucose monitor on the kitchen table. But when my niece brought over a bag of loose green tea from a trip abroad, she insisted I try it. "It's full of antioxidants," she said, pouring hot water into a mug. I smiled politely and took a sip. It was bitter, more than I expected, but there was something clean about it. Refreshing. I didn't know it then, but that bitter little cup would end up becoming part of my daily routine. I started small, 1 cup every afternoon after lunch. It helped me avoid that sleepy fog I often felt around 2 p.m., when I usually crave something sweet to perk me up. The tea gave me a lift without making me jittery like coffee sometimes does. After a week, I noticed I wasn't crashing as hard later in the day. My energy felt steadier, and I wasn't constantly looking for snacks. Then came the surprise, my weight. I'd been stuck at the same number on the scale for months. But after a couple of weeks with green tea, I dropped 2 pounds, without changing much else. I hadn't expected that. What truly impressed me, though, was what I felt in my head. I've always had moments where words slip away or I lose track of what I'm saying mid-sentence. But I started noticing I was a little more alert, a bit sharper. I wasn't forgetting names as often. I read somewhere later that green tea supports brain health and protects against aging. Again, I'm no scientist, but it felt true for me. My doctor even said my blood pressure was a bit lower on my last visit. Not a miracle cure, but a quiet shift in the right direction. And then there was my blood sugar. It wasn't just that it was lower, it was more stable. No big swings after meals, no dizzy spells or sudden hunger attacks. I felt more in control, like my body wasn't fighting me all day long. I also noticed fewer headaches, which I used to blame on weather or stress. Maybe it was the tea helping reduce inflammation. Or maybe it was just the act of taking a moment to sit and sip something warm and natural, without sugar, without guilt. Whatever it was, I didn't want to stop. Now, I make a point to brew my green tea gently, not with boiling water, just warm enough to bring out the flavor without turning it bitter. I sit outside when the weather's nice, cup in hand, and listen to the birds. It's become more than a health habit. It's a daily pause, a moment for myself. And if something so simple can help with energy, focus, weight, and blood sugar, I think it's worth every sip. So if you've been curious but hesitant, like I was, give green tea a try. You might just find it becomes the part of your day you didn't know you needed. Number 3, cinnamon tea. I've always loved the smell of cinnamon. It reminds me of my mother's kitchen, especially around holidays. Warm pies, baked apples, and that comforting sweet spicy scent in the air. But I never thought of it as something that could help with my health, let alone my diabetes. That changed when I read a story about people using cinnamon tea to balance their blood sugar. It sounded too good to be true, but the idea stuck with me, and one day, while organizing the spice rack, I spotted a jar of cinnamon sticks and thought, why not? I boiled one in water for 10 minutes, just like the article suggested, and added a few slices of apple to soften the flavor. The result was a cozy, delicious drink that felt like a hug in a mug. I started drinking it every other day in the afternoon, usually when I'd get that craving for something sweet. It helped. The tea satisfied that need without the sugar crash. I didn't expect much, but within a week, I began to notice I wasn't as hungry between meals. My cravings for cookies and bread seemed to fade a bit. More importantly, I wasn't feeling that post-lunch sleepiness that had become a regular part of my days. I was more alert and, strangely, even more motivated to go for a walk or tidy up the house, things I'd been avoiding because of the sluggishness. It felt like I was waking up from a fog. I also began to feel a difference in my joints. I've had arthritis in my fingers for years. Some mornings I could barely open a jar. But after a couple of weeks of drinking cinnamon tea regularly, the stiffness seemed to ease up. I could grip things more easily and even crochet again, something I hadn't enjoyed in months. A friend told me cinnamon has anti-inflammatory properties. Whether that's true or not, I know how my hands feel, and they feel better. It was a small victory, but it gave me a sense of hope. Sometimes that's all we need, one small change that reminds us our bodies can still respond. Then came the biggest surprise, my blood sugar readings. I always measure in the morning before breakfast and again in the evening. My numbers were more stable, not dramatically lower, but steadier. No more scary spikes or deep drops. I mentioned this to my doctor, and while he reminded me not to rely only on tea, he smiled and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't stop my medications or change my meals drastically, but I added cinnamon tea, and it felt like I had an extra ally on my side. Now, it's part of my weekly rhythm. I boil a stick in water, sometimes adding a clove or a little orange peel for variety. I drink it warm in the afternoons or chilled over ice when it's hot outside. It's become more than just a tea. It's a ritual, a reminder that even at this stage of life, small joys and gentle changes can still bring big results. If you love the smell of cinnamon like I do, give this one a try. It might just surprise you like it surprised me. Number 2, ginger tea. If there's one thing I always had in the kitchen, even before thinking about health, it was ginger. My mom used to boil it when we were kids whenever someone had a cold or a sore stomach. The smell would fill the whole house. Sharp and spicy, but somehow comforting. Years later, when I started feeling more aches in my joints and having trouble with digestion, I remembered that smell. I decided to try it again, not just as a remedy for a cold, but as a daily habit. I sliced a piece of fresh ginger, boiled it in water, and added a bit of lemon. That first cup hit me with a warm kick, like a little wake-up call. It wasn't sweet, but it was strong, and something about it just felt good. I kept drinking it once a day, usually in the late morning. What surprised me first was how much it helped with my digestion. I used to feel heavy and bloated after breakfast, especially on the days I had toast or eggs. But after a week of ginger tea, that heaviness started to fade. My stomach felt calmer, and I wasn't reaching for antacids like before. Then I noticed my hands, usually stiff in the morning, felt a bit more relaxed. I could open jars more easily and grip the broom without wincing. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a real change. Something was shifting, and it wasn't just physical. My mood improved, too. I felt more awake during the day, not jittery like with coffee, but alert, focused. I read later that ginger helps with circulation, which made sense because I felt more alive, like my blood was flowing better. I also started sleeping better, which was unexpected. I used to wake up at 3 a.m. for no reason and just lie there staring at the ceiling. But after a few weeks with ginger tea, my sleep became deeper, more restful. I'd wake up feeling like I had actually slept, not just tossed and turned all night. Of course, the biggest reason I kept going was how it affected my blood sugar. I wasn't expecting much, but one afternoon I checked my levels and saw a number that made me blink. It was lower than usual, safely low, but definitely better than I'd seen in a while. I kept tracking it, and the pattern continued. My numbers were more consistent, less of the usual roller coaster. I don't pretend ginger tea fixed everything, but it felt like it was helping my body do its job better, like it was giving me a hand, quietly every day. Now it's become one of my favorite moments of the day. I slice the ginger fresh, boil it slowly, and sometimes add a little cinnamon or honey-free stevia. I sip it warm while reading the paper or just watching the light shift outside. It's a simple thing, but powerful. If your joints are bothering you or your digestion's been out of whack, or you just want something natural to support your sugar levels, ginger tea might be the boost you didn't know you needed. It certainly was for me. Number 1, hibiscus tea. I still remember the first time I saw hibiscus tea. It was this bright red drink someone served at a summer gathering. It looked more like a fancy punch than something healthy. I didn't even know it came from a flower. But when I took that first sip, I was surprised. It was tart, a little fruity, and oddly refreshing. Fast forward a few years, and I was reading about ways to support my blood sugar naturally. There was again hibiscus tea. Some people were saying it helped with glucose, digestion, even joint pain. That caught my attention. My knees have been giving me trouble, and my sugar levels weren't as stable as they used to be. I thought, why not go back to that beautiful red tea and see if it could help? I bought a pack of dried hibiscus flowers from a small herbal store and started brewing 1 cup a day, usually after lunch. The smell was sweet and floral, almost like berries. At first, I drank it warm with a touch of stevia, but later I started adding a slice of apple and chilling in the fridge. It became my afternoon treat. After a week or so, I noticed I wasn't swollen in the evenings. My ankles, which used to puff up by dinner time, looked more normal. I also felt lighter after meals. No more uncomfortable bloating or that sluggish, heavy feeling that used to send me straight to the couch. Then came the joint pain. I'd been dealing with stiffness in my wrists and knees for a while, especially after gardening or even just walking a few blocks. After a couple of weeks of hibiscus tea, something changed. I wasn't waking up with that rusty, creaky feeling anymore. I could move around more easily in the morning, and bending down to pick something up didn't feel like a major task. I didn't believe it first. Thought maybe it was just a good week, but the relief stuck around. The more I read, the more it made sense. Hibiscus has anti-inflammatory properties and helps flush out excess fluids, which might explain the difference. And my sugar levels? Well, that was the biggest surprise. After just a few weeks, my post-meal readings were more stable. Not perfect, but better. My doctor noticed, too. He didn't say much, just raised an eyebrow and nodded when I told him I'd added hibiscus tea to my day. I think sometimes the body just needs a little help from nature. I didn't stop taking my medications or change my diet drastically, but this small habit felt like a missing piece. It made me feel like I was finally working with my body, not against it. These days, hibiscus tea is my favorite. It's delicious, pretty, and it does more than just taste good. It feels like it's doing something real. I always have a pitcher in the fridge, ready to pour over ice when the weather's warm or to sip gently after a heavy meal. If you're looking for something simple, natural, and beautiful to help you feel better, this tea might be your new best friend. It certainly became one of mine. When I started this journey, I wasn't looking for a miracle. I was just tired of feeling like my body was slipping away from me a little more each year. I tried diets, pills, exercises, and sometimes felt like none of it really stuck. But these teas, they brought something different. They weren't a burden. They were small, comforting moments in my day that actually made me feel good. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get excited over herbs and hot water, but here I am. Because when something helps you feel more alive, more at ease, it's worth sharing. Every person is different. What worked for me might not work the same for you. That's the beauty and challenge of our bodies. They each speak their own language, but I do believe in listening to those small changes. The softer joints, the steadier energy, the calmer evenings. These teas didn't erase all my problems, but they gave me a bit more balance and a feeling that I was doing something kind for myself. Not strict, not punishing, just kind. And at this age, kindness toward ourselves should be part of every health plan. I also want to say something important. If you're thinking about making changes to your routine, whether it's adding teas, adjusting your meals, or trying something new, it's always best to check with a healthcare professional first, especially if you take medications or have conditions that need monitoring. A quick talk with your doctor can give you peace of mind and help you avoid surprises. These natural tools can be powerful, but they should always be used with care and respect for your body's unique needs. What I've learned is that health isn't about giant leaps. It's about the quiet habits, the daily choices that don't feel like battles. It's choosing a warm cup instead of a sugary snack. It's finding relief in a flower or a root that's been helping people long before any of us were born. And it's trusting that your body, even now, wants to feel better. Sometimes we just have to give the right support and the patience to respond. So if you're watching this and wondering if it's too late, let me tell you, it's not. You can still feel better. You can still find new things that work for you. You can still wake up one morning and feel stronger, lighter, clearer. It might start with a simple cup of tea, but that cup could be the beginning of a whole new chapter, one filled with care, with balance, and with the quiet joy of knowing you haven't given up on yourself. Because your story isn't finished yet.